Hey, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Learning Java with Foundry VTT from the ground up. I don't know. So in our last episode, we went over primitive data types or primitive data values, maybe would be, well, let's do values. We'll call it primitive data type values and VALUES. So in this episode, we're going to be going over some more. We're going to talk about the complex data types. And really, the complex data types are more containers than anything. And the very first one that we have is called an object. Now, we do remember that if we go here and hit execute, the technically null did not come back as null as its type, or its type of. It came back as an object. And technically, null is still considered a simple or a primitive data type. Not really complex. Complex data types are complex because of all the stuff you can do with them. And we're really going to glaze over the types here, which will give us time to get into our our variables and stuff. But this is mostly just to let you know that they exist, and on some of them we'll give a little more information in depth on what they are. So the first one we're going to talk about here is console.log, and it is actually called a set. Now, or not a set, sorry, it's actually an object itself. So an object can store lots of these other types of values and have an associated property to each of those. So you have a property and the value associated with it. And then you can actually access that kind of like a variable programmatically. And that's really confusing, but if you just hang with me, it should make more sense. So we're going to go ahead and do typeof. So the way we create a set generally is it's simply curly braces. Not to be confused with the opening and closing curly braces of a block of code. This is considered a set, or not a set, sorry, an object. A set is one of the ones we're actually going to talk about. So let's just go ahead and just create an empty object here. So we're going to do our type of against what this is, which is an object, and this is going to be an empty object. Now, the difference between an object and, say, a value here is that an object can contain multiple values and have associated properties for that value. So if we go in here and now we hit execute, you'll actually see now we have something called an object, and you'll see there's our thing. And we actually can click on this little arrow and we can see more in depth what it is. It has a prototype, which is information that it uses. Really, we don't need to go into any of this. But inside here, if we had more values, we could actually put them in there. And we're actually going to do that with our next complex data type, which is called an array. An array is kind of like a card catalog in a library. Or I'm trying to think of another, because who knows if they still have card catalogs in libraries. But it's a storage of multiple values, and then they're automatically given a property to access them. So to create an array, it's kind of like the object there. We're going to do console console.log, and we're going to do typeof, and it's just a close and open brace. So an opening and a closing brace, not parentheses, but the actual brace. The ones kind of look like a staple. I don't know what else to call them. And basically, it is created the same way. If we do it just like that, we now have an empty array. So if we come in here and go ahead and clear this and run it, you'll see now we have another object, but this one looks just like that. However, this is actually an array, where this one up here is an object, right? But technically an array is an object. So let's populate our array, because an array can actually have, and an object can actually have all different types of things too. We can have all kinds of values in here. So we could, do our string of T for ZZ M for NN, and to tell it that the next element in our array, what we do is we stick a comma. So we can actually have multiple values and different value types. So we could then stick in here, true, or we could stick in here maybe a number 1337. We could stick in here undefined, UNDEFINED. We could stick in yet another array. So we could just put another array in here, and maybe in this array we put a set. Oops, that's not a set because I wasn't holding shift. We could put null in here, a null value, and so on and so forth. So we have all these different things within our little array. And if we run this, let's go and clear this and run it, I messed something up. Let me go see what it is. So we have type array, we have we have a string, that. We have oh, I see what it is. We don't have our closing bracket. We only have the one. So if I do that, now we have the two, one for this array right here, and then one for the master array right there. And that should actually now work. Let's go ahead and clear that. And there we go. So now you can see we actually have an array of 5 things, 5 values. We have Tasman, we have true, we have 1337, we have undefined. We then have another array, so you can see by brackets there, and if we click on that, you can see inside this array we have a set right there, which doesn't have anything in it, and we have a null value. So we can actually have arrays, and we can have, not sets. Why do I keep calling it a set? Sorry. An object. We can have all these types of values in there. Now, once again, it's not very useful in any shape, way, or form until we start talking about variables. So let's go ahead and continue on to our next complex object, which is called a map. Console.log. Now, a map is just like an array, with the exception of you can actually assign what the property for each element is. So these values in here are actually what you call elements. If we go look at our array here, you'll see that it's automatically assigning the property of a 0 for Tasman, 1 for true, 2 for 1337, 3 for undefined, 4 is another an array, and within that array there's a 0 and a 1. Arrays always start element-wise, they always start with 0 and count up. But it's always starting with 0, and that's very important to know. Now, with a map, we can actually define what we want this name to be. And like I said, we're not actually going to go into it because this is a whole thing. We could do a whole episode series type thing on this. So we're only going to show you how to create them at this moment. And later on, I promise we will definitely get more into it. So we're going to do type of and we're going to do a map. Now the way you create a map, because it kind of looks like an array once it's set up, we actually can't just do the two brackets because it's a map, not an array. And the way we do that is we say new. We use the new keyword saying that I want to create a new object, and then we do uppercase M, AP, open and close parenthesis, and that creates us a new map. So this is going to define our new map as an object. And now if we actually want to create one, a new MAP, close and open parenthesis, and there we go. So if we go clear this, hit go, now you'll see we have an object that is type map. And you'll see once again it has entries, none in there right now. Its size is 0. You'll notice the array also has a length instead of a size, and we will talk about that as well. So our final complex data type that we're going to go over is finally the one I've been saying a lot, console.log, and this is typeof, type of, and it's declared the same way we do a map, but it is called a set. So we say new set, and it's open close parentheses, and then we'll actually create one so we have the object to look at, and say new set and open close parentheses, and there we go. So if we clear this, hit execute, now you can see we now have an object. It's a set, and it's going to look a lot like the other ones we have. The only one that actually has stuff in it, we can't really do anything with it, but the one that actually has stuff in it, you can see that, it's filled. And like I said, the reason we kind of filled the array is because we're going to be talking about that one first. So these are our complex data types that we're going to be going over. So the next thing, finally, the bread and butter, the thing that makes programming even worth it, is variables. And if you want to think of a variable as a bucket, that's a pretty good analogy. You can think of it as a box, a bucket, something. But if I have a bucket, and on that bucket I say this is the name of the bucket, then I can put something in that bucket, and then later on I can go, where is that bucket named whatever, and I can access what is in that bucket. So let's put this to use here now. So there are some rules about naming our buckets or our variables. The main rules are that names can contain letters, digits, the underscore, and $sign. Most other symbols probably want to stay away from because they're used for other things and they might cause issues. The variable name needs to begin with a letter. Names can also begin with a $sign and an underscore, but we're really not going to use those much in this tutorial. Names are case sensitive, so a lowercase y and an uppercase y are different variables. And finally, you cannot use reserved words like JavaScript keywords, which you can go Google what JavaScript keywords are. Some of them would be like, for from a for next loop, if from an if then statement, things along that nature, and keywords, that are actually reserved, like string and stuff like that. So I'm going to copy from my notes those little rules, and we're going to paste them in here. So this will be variables, and we're going to create a multi-line comment that we were talking about, just like so. So we have a slash and then the asterisk, and then to close it we have an asterisk and a slash, so just the inverse. And if I paste those in there, we can do this. It's not going to be all formatted nice and everything because of spacing. These are basically your rules that you have. So it can contain letters, digits, underscores, and $signs. Sometimes people will put the $sign at the beginning of their variable. Underscores in different programming languages might signify that this is a private variable, not accessible anywhere else. But that's more kind of a visual. It's not written in stone. JavaScript doesn't actually look at it and say, nope, sorry, you can't do that. So now that we know about these buckets that we can put things in, and we know how to name them and what kind of names they can have, we need to know how to define the type of bucket, because we actually have 3 types of buckets. One is called a var. The other one we define using a let. And the last one we define using a const. So a var and a let are very similar, except for kind of their scope, where they're viewable from. Vars are not used very much in Java, later versions of Java, because of security issues. Lets are usually what you will use. And then a const is a constant. It's something that doesn't change. So let's just go ahead and do all 3 of these. So we're going to say var, because we're going to define a new variable. And we're going to give our bucket a name. And let's call this platform, maybe. Platform. And we are going to use the equal, which is the assignment operator. So whatever is on the right side of this equal will be assigned to the value on the left, or the variable on the left, sorry. So let's go ahead in here. Let's just do a string called YouTube. YouTube, just like that. And then let's go ahead and do a let. And maybe do name, right? What's my name? And we'll do equals. And let's use our string literal guy there, because why not? And actually, this is a good idea that we can show you what a string literal is. So we could say that name is going to be T for ZZ, M for NN, and then we're going to stick on, and then we're going to use our string literal for what it's actually really good at. And what that is we can actually take this platform and inject it in here, so it will actually say Tasman on YouTube. Now, we can do this with any other type of string by using the concatenation. Whoops, that's not a plus. So we could do, you know, a little plus here, and then say platform like that. And this will do the same thing, you know, and if this is single quote, double quote, or the special tick, it's really not going to matter. If I then output console.log and say name, we'll see it will actually say Tasman on YouTube. So let's go and clear this, and there we go, Tasman on YouTube. So a nice thing with string literals is you don't have to have this plus and stuff like that. You still do have to have some syntax to tell your program that this is not part of a string. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. And then we're going to do a string and then an open and close curly brace. So this is telling JavaScript what is within this little chunk of code is going to be another value that I'm just going to append in here. So now if I do platform and I run this, we get the exact same thing. Now right now it's almost more typing to do this than just stick a plus and a space and then platform. But there will be later on where this is actually much nicer to do and less confusing. So this is something to keep in mind. Then let's go ahead and do our last one, which is a const. Const, and we will, this is a constant, and let's do pi, you know, which is 3.14. So a const is a value that once it's declared, it cannot be changed. So later on, if I want to change any of these others, like if I wanted to say Twitch instead for platform, I could simply come in here and say platform and say equals, and let's do Twitch, TWITCH, right? And then semicolon to end it. Now, of course, name is still going to be Tasman on platform YouTube, because this is going to actually execute before that. So when we run it here, this has already been assigned the YouTube, and platform will not have the Twitch in it. However, if I go and reset, after I do that, I go reset it, and then I do this console log name again, it will actually change it to Twitch. So what we're doing here, these three up here, we're defining our variables. We're defining this one as a variable that is a string, because we learned that that's type of string named platform. So YouTube is the value that's put in that bucket. This let is another way of doing var and is a better way, more secure. And this is assigning Tasman on plus platform, so YouTube, and is assigning it to name, right? So this bucket name now has this entire value. Now the part I wanted to point out is we change platform down here, but because we're assigning it here, it's not going to automatically update when we do it here, because this is simply going to be a value. Once JavaScript looks at this, it takes this and it says, okay, platform is equal to YouTube. Boom, YouTube is here. That platform part is completely gone. And then we have our constant type, which is pi for pi, and then we're assigning that 3.14. So to reassign a value into platform, we're now saying, okay, platform no longer is going to be YouTube, it is now going to be Twitch. And so what it does is it scraps the YouTube bucket, and it says, okay, I'm going to create a new bucket called platform, and now it has the value Twitch in it. So then when I come in here and I output this, it's going to output this old value. It's not going to know that it's been changed to Twitch. And then once we rechange our name, we don't have the let or the var in there, note that, now it's going to change platform to the new value of platform, which is Twitch, and it should output that. So if we come in here and run this, we should get both a YouTube and a Twitch. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's kind of complex, but basically if you think of it as these buckets, I have a bucket named platform, has the value YouTube in it. I then take my bucket platform, I get rid of what's inside of it, and now I put Twitch in it. So when I create this one, it's taking the value out of that, replacing this whole thing with that value of Twitch, and assigning that to name, right? Now, the thing I wanted to point out is a constant is just that. It's a constant. So if we came in here and we said pi equals peach, right? And we try and do that, this is going to throw an error because we're trying to reassign a constant value. So we hit execute, there we go. We got assignment to constant variable, which is not allowed because a constant is constant, doesn't change, hence the name constant. So we're going to actually comment this one out. In other words, we're going to error out on every single thing we do. So now if we do that, it's more than happy to run as we have it. Excuse me. So these are what we've gone over here is basically our complex data types and also variables. And now we actually have something that we can do something with. We actually can have something that might change depending on a user's input or something like that. We can, have our book is now more interactive. Up here, It's just whatever it is every single time it runs. Now that we can use variables, we can change those variables based on input and based off of programming logic to get different outcomes, which is what we'll be going over next. Actually, no, I think we have more of this, but in the future we're going to be going over that. So hopefully this made sense for you. If you have any questions, leave your questions down in the comment section below. You can also join my Discord. That information's in the description. I always have a Discord window open, so I usually reply fairly quickly when you say something in Discord. Just trying to think really quick if there's anything else I needed to talk about specifically about variables and types. I don't think so. I guess I could show you an example of a var versus a let. So in our little console window here, there's a main component called window. And basically window is an object that is everything that is in the window, right? So we come in here, we can see it is an object that has boatloads of stuff in it. If we move over some of them, I'm trying to figure out which one it was, we can look up different things, like the canvas is in here, and all this stuff is inside the window object. When I create a var type variable, let's go ahead and shrink this. Now I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work the way I'm expecting it to, because this is actually a macro. No, technically it's not. If I did it in here, it wouldn't, but here it should. So let's create a var, and we'll call it first name, F-I-R-S-T, first name, and let's do camel case so it's a little easier, and we're going to assign that to Taz. So if our first name equals Taz, oh, I forgot to put it in quotes. Oh, I'm so smart sometimes. Let's put that in quotes. Taz is trying to be a variable. So if I do this, if I go look in that window object now, which is a global object, we should be able to find in here a value called first name right there, Taz. So this is a global object. Anything that has access to this window also has access to this variable. Now, if this were something more on like a credit card number, that definitely would be bad, because now all of a sudden anything accessing this window would have access to, say, my credit card number. Now let's go and we will say let, and we'll do last name equals, let's do single quotes, why not, M4NN, like so. So if we go look in our window object, whoops, I'm not there. If we go look at our window object, we will not find a last name variable in there because it's actually embedded, and I'm not 100% sure where the Foundry window is embedding it. I went to look for it the other day and went down the rabbit hole and could not find it. But you'll see in here, there is no last name. You know, there should still be our first name though. There's first name, but the last name is actually in its own scope. So that's probably your biggest difference between a var and a let, is the let gets logged to the window object, and the var gets logged to the window object and is available to anything in that window, where the let will be more localized to where it is actually declared. Now we can actually use both of them together. If we come here, and I probably should have minimized the window object because it is huge, But if I say oops, that's console dot log. Whoa, that's way wrong. It's doing a lot of thinking. console dot log, and then do parentheses, and we could do firstname plus lastname and close the parenthesis. Oh, last main. No. Last name. I think that should work. Oh, that didn't work either because it did something else. I don't know why it says nameanc. N-A-M, last N-A-M-E. Make sure the first one, the first one doesn't have a... This is supposed to be really quick and easy to show you. There we go. So now we have Tasman. So it's actually getting this from the window object, and then this from wherever the local scope is stored, and it's formulating them together. So we still have access to our let variable and our var variable. However, like I said, the security is different between the two. So generally, a good rule to follow is always use let, unless you have a very specific reason for using var. However, always use const unless you know that variable is going to change. So if a variable is going to change at some point, then you would use let. Other words, 90% of your variables are probably fine being consts. And we'll be talking more about that later. So we're over 30 minutes. I didn't want this necessarily to go that long, but I think we covered a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed what you saw. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you did, leave some comments down below. Like the video, thumbs up down below. Comment, like, subscribe. Click the notification bell so you know when I upload new videos. You'll always be on top of it. And check out my other YouTube channels. Check out my other channels in general. My Discord channel, Twitch, all that fun stuff. All the information is down in the description. Tell other people about my channel. Check it out. If they like what they see, they can sub. We grow the channel. Win-win for everyone. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.